Seeing how much I enjoyed the main story of Final Fantasy XVI when I played it, I was really looking forward to the paid DLCs launching, and I was obviously going to pick them up. Now that I circled back to Echoes of the Fallen to knock it off my backlog, was it worth the $10 for the individual DLC? Well, let's get into it.
It seems somebody's woken this place up. The question is, who?
Welcome back to JBG. Today we're talking about the Final Fantasy XVI DLC, Echoes of the Fallen. Coming in hot right off of God of War's awesome Valhalla DLC, figured I'd play through this DLC too since it's been sitting for about 2 weeks now. Here's your spoiler warning. This is late game DLC that has some spoilers for the main game right off the bat. As much as I wanted to spoil the story here since I think it's pretty relevant to where I'm going with it, I'm only going to spoil the setup since there are a few things some people might appreciate there even if I didn't. So the DLC is set at the point of no return of the main campaign. From what I've heard, you need to have finished both Joshua and Jill's side quests for the quest to activate. I was already on my final save for my finished playthrough, so this wasn't a big issue for me. But it does seem like kind of an odd placement to be at the very end, even if I can appreciate being organically incorporated into the main game. The story's focused on a new crystal form that's starting to show up that's much less powerful than the ones destroyed with the mother crystals. These are basically single-use crystals, and they're calling them dust crystals. But with the mother crystals destroyed, these shouldn't exist. So you track down some peddlers selling these dust crystals, and you're introduced to Famiel. At least I think that's how you say his name, because not only does it not do much to develop his character, I don't even remember them actually saying his name at all. They might have, and I just missed it. Chasing him through a few locations leads you to a set of ruins of the Fallen, the ancient civilization mentioned throughout the main game. You're looking for a mother crystal to destroy the heart the way you did with the other crystals. And that's where I'll leave it here due to spoilers. Just note this setup is about half of the story of the DLC itself. So does the DLC actually change anything up from the main game? Well, I'll answer that after a quick plug for our sponsor.
This video is sponsored by my day job. All views and opinions are my own. Likes and subs are appreciated, but don't hit the notification button. Does anybody actually even do that? Seems annoying. Don't do that.
So talking about the mechanics is where I'm going to start being a little bit more negative about this thing. I don't expect a DLC to fully rework game mechanics by any means. But for a paid DLC, I expect something to be added, or at least changed up a bit. There's only a single thing added here that I can think of, outside of a short quest line and a bit of new gear, with a sword and a few accessories. And this being just a spell that'll damage you if you attack an enemy physically that already casted it. And it seemed like any simple icon magic dispels it. It shows up once you get into the ruins, it's used a couple times in passing, and that's pretty much it. So don't go into this thinking it's going to change up anything about the base game at all. The few bosses here get a bit more bullet hellish than I remember anything from the base game, and that made evading some of their attacks next to impossible, but spamming dodge and the potion button worked well enough to get through it. The cannon fodder enemies are a little bit tougher than the ones from the main game, but almost not even to the point of worth mentioning. Like the base game, the only time I died, I just wasn't paying close enough attention to spam some heals. There just isn't anything here really any different mechanically from the main game, so that's something that'll be up to the player if they appreciate that or not. There's still a few pros here among all the cons I saw. Although it offers very little added content to the base game, it's more the same and easily palatable with the short runtime, if that's what you're looking for. It integrates into the main campaign pretty flawlessly considering it's at the very end of the story, so your progression carries over into and out of the DLC itself. I usually appreciate that since the second playthrough will have it organically inserted. With the lack of adding much significant gear, I will say I did like the diversity of the added accessories. This is the most impactful part for me since these were somewhat overpowered, but by late game, they fit in well enough. It did finally get me to swap out that auto accessory for Torgal. I had that equipped since the second you got Torgal as a main party member in the base game. A small win, but a win nonetheless. So is it worth the $10? Here's where I have to be honest for a game I totally liked and was really looking forward to the story DLC. This isn't worth $10 for the individual pickup at all in my opinion. Picking up the season pass might be worth it if you're going to pick up the Rising Tide anyway, but I'm not even going to say that's worth it at this point with how lackluster I found this. This would be a wait for sale around $5 if you were curious at this point, and that's not likely to happen anytime soon since the next DLC is still a few months out. Coming off a good 12-ish hours off the God of War DLC, this only took me about 3 or 4 hours. And that's just a bad look for a paid DLC. I've actually heard people put their own playtimes closer to 2. There just isn't anything here outside of a single quest line with no side content and a minimal amount of gear. Though the new sword with an upgraded version could be useful starting out a New Game Plus run, it's nowhere close to necessary. Unfortunately, I just found this so insanely lackluster for $10 with so little value added to the main experience at all. I'm still 100% going to pick up the Rising Tide when it launches, since I'm pretty confident that'll be much more substantial. Plus, I want to see the modern take on Leviathan as an icon and see where they take it. This was just an overall letdown for me, unfortunately. Let me know down in the comments if you played through Echoes of the Fallen, and if you think I'm way off base in my opinion of it. Until next time.
And hanging on to these crystals will only get our people killed. Have it your way then.
Stand back. It's about to get hot in here.
What? Toodaloo, motherfucker. Hey.